Welcome to Printer Care 101 and the Versa Studio BD series on the Rotary. This is part 2 on media setup. When you open up the BD utility with the Rotary installed, hit Setup, same procedure as you would for a flat substrate. However, with the Rotary installed, you'll notice that the only ones that can be selected and are visible are ones with Rotary information. So it's impossible to try and print a flat substrate with a Rotary. Because we're going to set up a new one, hit the plus sign and give it a name. I like to name it the object that it actually is. For example, lipstick tube or brown bottle, something like that you'll easily remember. Then we need to select what kind of object it is. In our case, it's a clear bottle, so it is transparent and not opaque, and it's other. And if you're doing something that was opaque, you just need to select opaque, but we are not. And then after that, hit OK. This will lead to a very familiar screen, and we need to set the height. So we are going to hit change. And we're going to go back and forth looking for the BD-8 rotary, just because sometimes with the laser it's a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to change the views back and forth a few times. When you put your bottle in, keep in mind that it may not be totally flat, and we're going to test that in a little bit. So move the fence up about 3/4 of the way of your item, and then use the screw to move it in place. And this is to make sure that when it rotates, it should be able to spin freely and not make any contact with the fence. For example, looking at this bottle moving all the way across, it's actually not even flat, so you may need to move your item so they are evenly on the rollers for best rotation, so that way it doesn't pop up and hit the print head, but you still need to be very wary for flat spots. We are going to test for flat spots when we move over to the control panel and select the maximum distance around, because we want the bottle to move all the way in a complete circle. So if there are any flat spots, they'll pop up and will be in a regular movement. So let's move the bottle all the way back, setting up to 0, 0 for our original, and then do that same rotation. And notice how it goes off center, knowing that that's not going to work when we're actually printing on our items because of that variation. Now let's test again and do another rotation. And look how that bottle still comes a little bit off. So if items are too light, you might have to put water or something else in there to weigh them down. So let's try that again. And it rotates nice and cleanly because that water has enough resistance that it doesn't overpower the rollers. Move the guide in on the left side, and then we are going to put it under the height sensor. And just like for a flat substrate, we're going to change the increment to a 1 millimeter or so, and then move it up. Before we do that, we are going to rotate now that it's under the printing area, just to make sure there's something that could interfere with the print head. Now we can change the increment and use the up and down arrows to change the height. And same thing with a flat substrate. We're going to eyeball it close and then hit automatic. Then the printing table will move and make its adjustments on its own. And after it's completed, we're going to change the increment to 0.1, and we're going to tab it down just a few fractions of a millimeter. Because that your item, this bottle, is going to be in movement, in rotation, I want to make sure to give it just a little bit extra distance, so just in case it does hit a flat spot, it doesn't impact the print head. After we're done, hit OK. And right now we are going to set the print area and the print origin. So select change. So remember how I had you take the height of the item? That's essentially going to be your print area. But right now we are going to set the print origin, or where it's going to start. Now normally the origin is going to be the lower right. So select the pointer, and it's going to drop a laser so you can see generally where the printer thinks it's going to start. And it's right on the edge of the fence, which is not going to do it because it actually doesn't have our bottle included. So that's not a good print area. So let's change the increment and hit the left and right arrow keys, because we're going to move it so it's at the very bottom of our bottle. And you can move it just in little increments, which is what we're doing here, just to make sure we get the maximum print area we can. And now when we select print area, if you look at the big orange box, it's going to move all the way to the left-hand side because that's where it's seeing the print area is going to be. So let's change the increment and move it in so it only has our bottle. Select 50 millimeters, the largest increment, and use the right arrow key until the laser is directly onto the point that you would like, which should be the top of the flat spot on the bottle. If you remember correctly, you took the height of the bottle, and so your width, because the bottle is turned 90 degrees, should be the height that you had taken earlier. And here's the drop down. It's just exactly right where we want it to be. And now we are going to set the length, which is going to be the circumference of your item, which is the other number you should have calculated. So knowing the diameter, which in this case is 36.5 millimeters times pi, 3.141, we're going to get 114.6 millimeters. So this will be the length of our item. And if you also remember, this is the size of your artboard when you were designing as well. So after that is set, we're going to hit OK. The carriage will slide all the way back. And then you can close the lid, because now we have set the print area, the origin, and the item height. So we're almost ready to be done with our media preset. And after everything is all right, hit OK. And then the BD series will make its changes. And then your media guide will show, and it will have the name of your media guide as well as the items that you had entered. The length, which is your circumference, the width, which is actually going to be the height. Thank you for watching part 2, and stay tuned for part 3.